Well, hi, CBC Church family. I want to take a few minutes today just to offer us some encouragement and to offer us a little tool to help us process as we continue to walk through this COVID-19 situation together. You know, when a crisis or a tragedy or unexpected difficulty happens to us, we can easily and understandably become overwhelmed trying to process the situation. This is common to all of us, and one of the biggest problems I think that we experience in difficult times is that we have a hard time separating those things for which we are not responsible from those things for which we are responsible. And perhaps you've felt overwhelmed at times in the last few weeks during this COVID-19 situation as you've tried to figure out how to best sort through all the issues and responsibilities that this situation presents to us. And perhaps you've been wondering how to trust God while still doing things and living life. Now, the Bible speaks much to this sort of thing. The Bible is full of stories and instructions around this holy tension between God being in control of the earth and everything in the earth and all the people who live in the earth, and you and I still having responsibility for our thoughts and our actions and our attitudes. And one place where this tension feels pretty clear is in the book of Proverbs. In the Proverbs, we're told how to live wisely and in a God-honoring way. But we're also told to trust in God as He is the one who does all things and leads all people for His purposes and for His glory. In one place, this tension is sort of seen as in Proverbs chapter 3. And so let me read for us Proverbs chapter 3, verses 3 through 8. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart, so you will find favor and good success in the sight of God and man. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge Him, and He will make your paths straight. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord and turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. Now, the summary of this passage in my mind sort of goes like this. God is faithful and is in control over all. So then I will do this, or I will do it in this way, or I will think that, or I will think in that way. God's in charge, and so I will respond accordingly. So we see that these two things are true at the same time. God is sovereign and in control and trustworthy, and you and I are responsible for what we do and what we say and what we think. And on the one hand, this tension can sort of feel a bit confusing or even frustrating, but on the other hand, I think we can find it quite freeing. So here's a little tool that I sometimes use in counseling situations that helps us sort through these times of difficulty. I frequently find myself using this tool as I go about my days, as I work through difficult situations in my own mind or in my own life. And we call this the Control Rubric. And it's not original with me. I think it was developed by Paul Tripp, and others have refined it and built on it. But here's the tool. When you and I find ourselves in situations that seem difficult or overwhelming, and we're trying to make sense of the situation, here's something we can do. Pull out a piece of paper, grab your journal, take a whiteboard if you like to, and make a 2-column T-chart. In the first column, label the column concern. These are areas of legitimate concern that we have that are affecting us today, but things that we have no control over. Only God has control over the things in the first column. I can't control them, God controls them. In the second column, label the column responsibility. These are areas of responsibility that God has given to me. So these are things that I can control or influence as I go through my day or walk through the situation. And so I have this column, these two columns, this chart. In the left-hand side, those things which God controls. On the right-hand side, those things which I have some degree of control or influence over. Now, what I find in myself and in others is that at times we often confuse these two columns. We often try to do only what God can do while ignoring the things for which I'm responsible. Or sometimes we expect God to do the things that He has given us responsibility to do. So sometimes we expect God to do our job for us, and sometimes we try to do God's job for Him. And this confusion can cause us to be overwhelmed with worry and anxiety and apathy and even anger, because we find that we simply can't change things, and we find that some things simply aren't getting taken care of. But if we trust God with those things that we cannot change, then we can rest. And if we prayerfully focus on obediently addressing the things in our sphere of influence or responsibility, then we can make headway toward a solution. And so seeing these things on paper or on a whiteboard and separating those things out, those that are God's responsibility from those things that He's given me some responsibility for, I can begin to sort through the issues, and they can help bring some sense to my situation, and ultimately some hope and some peace in the middle of struggle or difficulty. So the bottom line in this is that we are to trust and obey. We can identify what we cannot change, and we prayerfully trust God with those things. And we can identify what's in our realm of responsibility, and we can obey God, doing those things prayerfully with His help and with His strength, doing the right actions in the right attitude. And so in terms of COVID-19, some of the things that I cannot control and I must leave up to God is the fact that coronavirus exists. I can't change that. It's here, it's among us, it's with us. And at the moment, this moment in time, it's spreading around us. So how it spreads, its existence, etc., those are things I can't control. I give that to God. That's in God's hands. Or what the government mandates. Additional closures, or school not starting back up this school year, or I can't go shopping the way I think I perhaps want to or need to, or I can't run the errands or work the way I want to work. Those things also aren't in my control. So what the government mandates, those are up to God. I have no control over those things. Or I have no control over whether or not I get ill, or whether or not my wife or kids get ill. Now I can take the proper steps, and we all know what the proper steps are, to protect ourselves and to protect others. We can take those steps, and we should take those steps. I encourage those steps. But at the end of the day, I can't control whether or not I actually contract COVID. And so that's something which I must give over to God and let Him have. And then I can't take responsibility for other people. I need to trust God for what other people do in my sphere of interaction. How people, whether or not they social distance, or when people sneeze on me in the grocery store checkout line, or whether or not others do the things that they're supposed to be doing as well. I can't control those things. I can only give those to God and trust Him with it. Now, this list could be much longer. I ran out of whiteboard space. But as you think through your list and the things which you can control or cannot control but give to God, make the list as long as you need. These are things that you want to give over to God because they're things that only He controls. And then in the other column, the responsibility column, there are things that I can control or influence. Like how I set my daily routine, how I spend my time, what I spend my days listening to or watching, what I spend my time doing during the day. I can also control how I love my spouse, or I can control how I parent my kids as they're home from school, or they're also out of routine. I can control my actions and reactions toward them. I can control how I seek God. One of the potential silver linings to a slower pace is that we may have more time for quietude or solitude to seek God and pursue Him. And so I may be able to control how I open my Bible, how I seek the Lord, and cut time out of my day to do that. Other things on this list could be how I work. Perhaps I'm working in a different way these days. Or how I do my shopping, or how I go about protecting myself and others by doing all the recommended things that they're telling us to do. These things I have some control and influence over, and so I can do those things prayerfully and obediently and faithfully for what God has me to do. And so in the first column, the concern column, the bottom line is for me to pray and trust. I pray over these things and I trust God with them. In the second column, the things I can have some degree of control over, my bottom line is to pray and obey. Again, I still pray. I still give these things to God. I ask Him for His strength and His guidance, and then I take the right steps to obey. And so I pray and obey. And so this is the tool. This is the control rubric that has helped me over the years separate those things from which are God's responsibility solely and totally, and those things which He has given me some degree of control over, and He instructs me to respond to Him in a faithful and obedient way. And so all this leads me back to Proverbs chapter 3. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and in all your ways acknowledge Him. And so as you go about your day today, trust Him, and as you do your life, acknowledge Him in all of your ways. He will set your path straight. He'll put your mind at peace. And if I were to summarize Proverbs 3 through 8 in just a couple of phrases, I would say, trust God and live faithfully. Trust God and live faithfully. That's what He's given us to do today, even as we walk through this COVID-19 situation. And I also want to mention Psalm 37, verse 3. Psalm 37, verse 3, the entirety of Psalm 37 is an excellent, encouraging read. But over the years, when I've walked through difficult times, when I have come to places in my life when I just didn't know what to do, there seemed like there was no good solution. Seemed like the situation was going to drag on longer than I wanted it to. And I would ask myself, what is it I should do? Psalm 37 has been instructive to me over the years. One of the phrases from Psalm 37 that's caught my attention several times is the first part of verse 3, where the psalmist says, trust in the Lord and do good. Trust in the Lord and do good. When you are overwhelmed, when you're wondering what's going on, when you're tired of quarantine, when you are wondering whether or not COVID-19 is going to miss me, my house, my household, my family, when you wonder when we'll ever get back to normal, and you wonder what it is we need to be doing, I think 37 verse 3 helps us sort things out. Trust in the Lord and do good. And this control rubric here can help us work through how we see the issues and can help us to focus on the idea of trusting in the Lord and doing good as we experience these things. And so no matter what you're walking through today, even COVID-19, His Word tells us that we can cast our anxieties on Him because He cares for us. And so let's do that today, church. Let's go today and trust and obey, even as we do one more day of COVID-19 quarantining. God is good. He is here. He is present. We can trust Him. He loves us. He's got our back. He's caring for us. Let's trust Him, and let's obediently and faithfully walk with Him today. Let's do that together, church.